hopefully he recovers quickly. All right, at 7 o'clock, we'll go ahead and call to order our Board of Commissioners regular meeting for January 18th, 2022 for South County Fire. If we have those at headquarters, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll move on to approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Commissioner Teoflack. We have a second on the motion. Commissioner Lawrence. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Commissioner Jan, was there an aye?
Sorry, yes.
I didn't see a hand, but so great, motion carries.
All right.
Moving on to the consent agenda, we've got quite a few items here. We've got 4A through H. Looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Commissioner Lawrence, second on the motion. Commissioner Teoflack, any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Kenny.
Question. I'm just not quite sure who's running the show tonight. Chief Fitzgerald.
Chief Fitzgerald, yes.
All right, Chief Fitzgerald, acting chief for the night. All right, Chief. Question. Just a follow up. Actually, this may be because Chief Isotelo made the presentation last week. Maybe it's for him, but I just wanted to confirm on the excess liability insurance. The staff recommendation is to do that, and that's that. I don't have my notes from last week right in front of me, but I want to say it was $2,500 more for that excess liability insurance. And so the staff recommendation is to do that, right? Chief Isotelo, maybe?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Chief Isotelo is going to talk to that.
Yeah, I think I can speak to that. Yeah, so the $2,500 you're referring to was a terrorist addendum to that's added on, and our general liability policy has very good coverage for that. So we've never taken advantage of that one. We've actually declined it. So what we're looking for was the $5 million in excess at the cost of, I believe it was $78,000.
And was that 5,000 more than last year, 2021, or 2,500? I recall those two numbers.
Yeah, actually, it was like a 4% increase, but they were able to go back to the underwriters and get them to drop it down to 77,000 the day of our last meeting. So, yeah, it was 4%. It's just below that now.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Kenny, I'm of the same thought as you. I thought it was a $2,500 increase year over year, that 2%.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions, Commissioner Kenny?
No.
Okay. Any other questions on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Commissioner Chan? Commissioner Chan, did you vote? Commissioner Chan, we don't have you on audio or video. I guess we'll call that a 501, an abstention. I'd like to make sure that he's not having any tech difficulties though.
I'll reach out to him.
Okay, thank you. Moving on in our agenda to item 5, approval of our meeting minutes for our November 16th and November 22nd meetings. Do I have any motion to approve? Commissioner Lawrence? Do you have a second on the motion?
I'll second.
Commissioner Daniels, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0-1. Moving on to public comment. Do we have anybody on the call wishing to make a public comment? If so, please use the raise your hand function and be recognized and moved over into the meeting to be able to make comment. Not seeing any hand raising. All right, seeing no hands, we'll go ahead and move on. Item number 7, our fire chief report, and with Chief Fitzgerald will be stepping in for Chief Hovis.
Well, good evening, Commission. I appreciate being able to speak to you and give you a chief's report, the content of which I'm not sure exactly what it is yet. We're going to display in a moment the standard COVID graphics that we provide each week to you. We also have, well, let's speak to that then first. We have that in front of us now. You can see we're at nearly 3,000 cases per 100,000 in Snohomish County. So quite a steep increase. This COVID variant that we're seeing now, the Omicron, this is really affecting many people in our community, but even here at South County Fire at the headquarters, if you were with me here, you would see me. And there's nobody else here in this room. Part of that is precautionary, just to do our part to help slow this infection. And then some of that is because we've got a number of people who just aren't feeling good. And we don't know that they're necessarily infected with COVID, but in order to be safe, we have really emptied the building, so to speak. And here's proof of that. When you look at the data here for Snohomish County, 3,000 folks per 100,000. So quite a steep increase there. And we're ordering supplies as necessary and trying to protect our own as much as we are protecting the community. And so let's move on to the next graphic. And you can see through a couple days ago, the vaccination rates within Snohomish County. And, you know, this is a good, you know, a bad increase, but a high increase over just the last week or so of an additional 1,000 cases. Next slide, please, Mike. And you'll see our regular alert here that, you know, we had just one alert in the last week, and pretty much otherwise normal volumes that we've been seeing. We can go to the next slide, Mike. And then the year over year, really 18% increase over 2021, the same time. Largely, we'd have to look back to 2018 and see similar incident volumes. Since the pandemic, of course, we had the slowdown of incident volumes, but we're increasing number of incidents and rivaling our 2018 volumes, which is one of our highest in many years. This past week, the main incident that we have to speak of is the Tsunami Warning, which affected our coastal communities, and the volcano in Tonga, which impacted, I think the highest that we had in Washington State was about a 1 foot wave, but we saw greater than that in California and Alaska as well. But really, I think a very well prepared response, a great response by our cities. The city of Edmonds in particular was really well positioned to protect their community. They closed the parks, closed the parking lots, and kept the roadways open, but we didn't see much impact here, but a really good response in case something unexpected occurred as a result of that tsunami warning. And I guess that's it for my chief's report that I just learned a short bit ago that I was delivering to you. So apologies for not being more prepared. It is kind of nice to sit here in this great big room and speak to you this evening, but we would rather have it have full staff here for one, and then also be in person with the commission, and hope to get to that point sometime soon and coming up.
Thank you, Chief Fitzgerald. I know you kind of hinted to it. Do you have any numbers on staff that are kind of out with COVID symptoms? Or, you know, we were hitting kind of a high number a couple of weeks ago. Is that still holding true?
We're reducing. I don't have the exact count here. I was given a report, but I don't trust that the data, we haven't double checked that the data are accurate, so I don't want to give you numbers, but roughly we're less than half than we were just a week ago as far as our members infected who are off work at this time.
Yeah, given the numbers that we're seeing in the graph, so just hoping that it wasn't holding true for staff. So that's good that it's reduced back down.
Correct.
Any questions, comments from commissioners? Commissioner Kenny?
Let's see, Chief Fitzgerald, I didn't know if you or Chief Taylor, or maybe Chief Eastman might be able to answer this question. At our meeting last week, Chief Eastman indicated, and I think Chief Hovis concurred, that we would be talking about the Mill Creek documents again tonight. And I see that those are not on the agenda. And I'm wondering, will we be, I'm assuming we're not talking about them tonight. Are we talking about them next, or at our next meeting, that first Tuesday of February?
Yeah, I'll pass to Chief Eastman to answer that, please.
So I noticed that they weren't on the agenda. I do have the information you requested though, Commissioner Kenny, in case we bring it up tonight. But we can assure that it will be on the agenda meeting for the first meeting in March, or sorry, February. I'm getting a month ahead. But I do have the information that you requested, or that we talked about last meeting. I'm not sure why it's not on the agenda, but if we don't talk about it tonight, we will definitely bring it up and bring that information forward at the next meeting.
Great, thank you.
Any other commissioner questions, comments? All right, thank you, Chief. Moving on to our union report with President Hoover.
Good evening, commissioners, staff, and guests. I too will have a fairly brief report for you. While the numbers have stabilized a little bit from my last report, when we were hitting that 3 times the normal variant several times in the week over week, this time only hitting it once is nice. The crews are still very busy. The hospital wait times are still extremely busy. I think I heard on the news today that Snohomish County only has 1 ICU bed left. So I've never seen the hospitals with patients stacked up in every possible corner, hallway, chair. It's been, for one, I'd like to say that they are doing an extremely good job of managing this, but our crews are still, even though we're kind of at normal volumes from 2018, our turnaround time from the hospitals have drastically gone up. So our out of service times are much longer. Our crews are not in the stations, not available for other emergencies for a much greater time. So I just wanted to make sure and pass that along. And really that I'll kind of stop there. With that, I'll answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, comments for President Hoover? All right. Thank you, sir. Moving on to item 9, unfinished business. We'll start with 9A, our benefit charge formula for 2022 with DC Eastman.
Good evening, Chair Urban and Board of Commissioners. This is, I'm going to call it a bit of housekeeping. We talked about when we passed the resolution to impose the impose the benefit charge for 2022. We talked about having the preliminary formulary associated with the benefit charge as part of that resolution. In the packet, it's page 70 to page 77. And what you'll see is the red line version, which is what the preliminary benefit charge factors were. And then you'll see a clean version, which is actually what the 2022 benefit charge was calculated on and give it to the county for them to put and to collect based on that. And I'll give a brief explanation of why it happens in this order. Is we actually cannot finalize the benefit charge calculations until we get the certified assessor's roll. We do not get that. We did not get that in this case until the 3rd of January. And so we take that, and then I think there was 69 parcels that were added, and there's some square footage changes. What we found is that there's some residential properties that had basements that didn't originally have their basement square footage, has since been added. And then we go using the same proportion that we talked about when the resolution was passed, and then just recalculate the factors to ensure that we are assigning the correct proportion of the benefit charge to each of the property classifications. What you're seeing in the finalized is what the 2022 benefit charge was calculated and the calculations were based on. And so staff would ask that the board makes a motion to accept the finalized formulary for the benefit charge in 2022. And then we will add that to the resolution that we passed in November.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions, comments? Commissioner Kenny?
Chief Eastman, the category factors at page 76 of 130 in the packet. It's page 1 of 2 of the benefit charge formula 2022. Those are that's the red line version that I'm looking at. I'm sorry, and the changes also, sorry, in category factors, that's where the changes are in this final formula versus the preliminary formula.
That is correct. And then there's the cost per gallon, which is what we use to base everything off of, was adjusted a little bit. That's not in this. So it was adjusted down a little bit as a result of the additional square footage within the RFA, which is the base that we set everything on. It's just not in this document. So there was that changed along with the category factors. You are correct.
And the category factors, as they change there, I believe you said a minute ago, those changes and those numbers as they change, they're maintaining the percentages that we originally settled on for each of these categories in 2021.
Yep. And then we use that in all the calculations for 2022 also. So yes, the way that the benefit charge was proportioned between the property classifications and the percentage used is the same. And those factors adjust the dollar amount to maintain that proportion.
Do you happen to have those percentages handy for residential, mobile home, multi-factor?
Well, I know residential 66. If you give me a minute, I can find them.
Well, residential is the most important in my opinion, but I mean, the others are important, but that's.
Yeah, so let me, it would just take me a second, Commissioner Kenny. Let me.
I just think it would be helpful for people to understand
Sure. Yep.
what the percentages are and the fact that they're not changing.
So the proportion, residential is 66%, commercial is 17.5, and that's spread over the 6 category classes. Mobile homes is 1.2, and multifamily is 15.3.
And so those percentages are the amount of the total benefit charge that is collected. That's the
That is
percentage
correct.
of the total that comes from each of those categories of properties.
That's correct. So for example, of our $5,821,580 benefit charge, which is what the resolution says that we're going to collect in benefit charge for 2022. 66% of that is residential, and that dollar amount is $3,842,243.
One thing I just put a bug in your ear, Chief Eastman, and maybe Chief Fitzgerald and Chief Isotelo, when we come back to this in the fall after 2 years at the same percentages, we might want to have a discussion about, do we want to push those percentages one way or another? Just revisit that question. Obviously, we answered that question when we adopted the fire benefit charge in 2021, but from time to time, I'm not saying every year, but from time to time, we should look at those percentages and sort out, are they where we want them to be? Do we want to push them in some direction higher or lower? Because that's one of the large powers of the fire benefit charge, is that the board can change those percentages year to year and adjust those, which is a quite a significant tool. And just, we should, think about that from time to time. Maybe in the fall will be a good time after 2 years at the same percentages, just to revisit and make sure we're in the right place. Just a suggestion. Thanks. And no further questions. Thank you.
Any other questions on the calculations and the benefit charge formula? All right, seeing none. So Chief, so are we looking to take action on this evening?
If the board will consider, the staff would recommend a motion to approve the finalized benefit charge calculations.
Great. Commissioner Chan, you're on mute.
I like to move to approve the benefit charge calculation by the staff.
Great. Second. Commissioner Kenny. Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, I just want to emphasizing that benefit charge is the most equitable way to charge our taxpayer because of the use of to service to service our constituents. I think that's a very good way. And then we're being fair. We're not really increasing a significant amount. I think that's on track with what we plan to do.
Great. Any other discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Wow. Motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Moving on to item 9B, or benefit charge appeals for action with DC Eastman.
This is for the board. We talked about this last meeting at the work session. As part of establishing the benefit charge and imposing a benefit charge for 2022, we are required to, by resolution, to establish a review board to take up any complaints on the benefit charge, which is a statute. People have the statutory right to be able to appeal their benefit charge if they choose. And the other piece of this is the date that appeals have to be submitted to be considered. In the discussion that we had with the board last week, I think the majority wanted between 5 and 6 weeks of time. We know that the typical year, the tax statements go out right around Valentine's Day. And so if people get them around the 15th of the month, if we set the date to the 1st of April, that gives people 6 weeks. And based on the conversation, I think from a staff's perspective, we felt that just makes sense moving from here forward. As we move forward, 2 weeks is very short, especially for folks that don't necessarily look at their tax statement until it gets closer to when it's due, A lot of people have their mortgage companies pay that. But this would allow people 6 weeks. And like I said, based on the discussion, staff feels that an April 1st for the deadline to receive any appeals moving forward is reasonable, and we can continue that moving forward.
Did you mean April 15th?
No, I meant April 1st. So if they receive it by the 15th of February, they'll have the last 2 weeks of February and the whole month of March. And then if we get appeals, the reason we did that, Commissioner Urban, is so if somebody appeals and we concur, we can get that information to the county actually before the taxes are due. And that gives us 2 weeks to actually do that.
Okay.
And because if people appeal and we don't get it changed, they still owe, and then they have to go through the reimbursement process. So part of the thought process from staff is for people that submit appeal, if they're awarded and are successful with the appeal, then we can make those changes to the county immediately, and then they don't have to pay any dollars. If we did it like we talked about last year through May 1st, people will still be obligated to pay it, and then they have to go through the reimbursement process. So that was the other part of the thought process that staff had as we picked the 1st of April and feel moving forward, that can just be the date from now on. And that gives people 6 weeks.
And I see that gives staff the time to, drop it on the 1st, gives you the 2 week window to address it and answer it.
Yep.
Commissioner Daniels?
Chief Eastman, I was curious about the timeline. So when somebody sets an appeal, what's the timeline to respond? Is that like a week? What are we looking there?
There's no statutory component to when we have to get back to them. To be honest, we did this last year and didn't have a single appeal.
Okay.
So we don't have any experience. I think the goal would be is that we set the review board that we can review appeals as they come in. We don't have to like sit on them until the 1st of April. We can address them as they go. So the goal would be is that we would, depending on how many they are, how few they are, is reasonably meet, resolve it, and then get an answer back and then move forward. And then I think there's a component that certain things we have to bring back to the board. We'd have to work that process out if we would do it in conjunction with board meetings or just bring it up at the very end once all the appeals are completed. And what we do would kind of dictate that with no experience. The other piece is if people wanted to appeal in person, that changes the dynamic too. And I think if you read our policy, they have the right to appeal directly to the board also. So some of those things would weigh into some of that timing, Commissioner Daniels. So I think the goal of the committee is to resolve them as quick as possible, get that information to the county to have the correction done as quick as possible. But not having any experience with it because we didn't have any appeals last year, I don't have anything I'm just telling you what we think we would do. Getting that in front of us and having to deal with it may change that with some experience.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, last year, we were talking about the notice, how the appeal was real confusing. Are we able to clear that up this year?
So the benefit charge is on the tax statement. And then on the tax statement is a phone number for the RFA and an email to the RFA for folks if they have concerns or want to appeal, that they appeal directly to the RFA and not the county treasurer's office.
Right.
And then I'm sure, and Leslie, I don't want to speak for you, but I know that we put it on the website and let people know that. And Leslie did that last year, and what we did last year, we would continue to do moving forward.
Did the county treasurer ever get any people confused and calling them in? You don't know, do you know?
No, you know what? They never actually contacted me. with that. And we did have conversations before, as we gave them the initial information, and we were going to have a dialogue if that happened, so we could figure out how to make sure that those calls came to the RFA and not the county treasurer's office. And I never received a call from Deputy Schwab, which is who we worked with through all this. So my assumption as a result of that is there was no issues with the treasurer's office as a result of us implementing the benefit charge.
Okay, maybe you can reminding them to call us if the staff will have that rather than, actually today you have a much better explanation about emphasizing on that the taxpayer would not be assessed, pay it first and then get reimbursement. Versus last week, the explanations are, well, we don't want to open too much. We are not for our own convenience, really convenience of the taxpayer. And second thing that I think you mentioned, really good. Another one that you mentioned, well, because last year nobody filed complaints, so therefore we can shorten it. So that's not. So I will vote yes, because I credit you. I will give a much more better explanation on the record that we're here. All right, thank you.
Any other questions, comments on this topic before we move for a motion? All right, do we have a motion to approve? Commissioner Teoflack, we have a second on the motion?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Chan. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Lawrence? Commissioner Lawrence? It's an aye. All right, motion carries.
Thank you, commissioners.
Moving on to item 9, Seer Commissioner Appointment Update with Melissa.
Well, I have some good news. We have a couple of applicants. So 2 applicants thus far, and I definitely credit that to, and must say thank you to Leslie for her continued efforts in getting the information out. We talked some about additional, after the last meeting, about additional organizations to reach out to. And we're hoping, we're not entirely sure exactly where the individuals found out about the position, but we can ask that at the interview possibly. And but good news that we have 2 individuals. I spent an hour yesterday and an hour last week speaking directly with a couple of other potential applicants that sounded promising. They were going to reach out to some of the commissioners as well. And if you have not heard from them yet, I'm going to reach back out to them tomorrow morning to, I know that one person still has not had an opportunity to make those calls, but I will reach out to both of them again to see if they are still interested. So we may have up to hopefully 4 applicants.
It's like homework.
Yes.
Just gotta wait till the deadline's almost there. So
Yes.
we've got 2 current and the potential for a few more before our closing date of, is it the 23rd or 26th?
26th. The ad
26th.
is still running. Press is still going out, and yeah, we're still working on it.
Melissa,
Yes.
do you mind asking those people now, so if they know that for certain venue that they ask, we can emphasize on that? I think that would be
Sure.
really helpful. Yeah.
Yeah,
that would
I
be
can do
great.
that.
Thank you.
So if you're still doing outreach and efforts, the more the merrier. Gives us more people to interview and try to find a very good fit for our commission. So thank you for staff. Everybody's been working on it. I know it's been kind of long process, and it's good that we actually did get some applications, so we don't have to give over this to the county to appoint.
Melissa, okay, questions? Melissa, you said some of the people who were trying to reach out to the commissioner?
They requested specific commissioners' information. Yeah, they
Oh,
wanted to speak to specific commissioners, and I provided the individuals with those commissioners' numbers to reach out to.
I don't know how would the staff feel. I don't know how the chair feel. I think we should open that if if the person want to talk to the chief or someone else, we should be transparent and open to talk about that type of thing. So
Yeah,
I would
I don't
suggest
see
if anybody object to it, I would suggest the staff and people that can.
I think it's a good idea. I think and it's fully down to, staff's time and availability to be able to field those calls.
Well, no, I mean, if somebody requests it, I mean, we're talking about 2 people now, maybe 4 people, maybe none of them reply, but to me, a commissioner is very important. And I think it's critical for, I don't know what busy, what other thing more important than the staff, if somebody if I were a commission, if I were applying for it, I would like to talk to a little bit staff, is to see what's organization all about. I think if the applicant asks more questions, more interested, and really investigate, I think that's a good candidate, and not just someone to sign up and wish for the best. I think, actually, I was surprising because in the past when we had that, we always 3 or 4, I don't know, Commissioner Ken, you probably remember, at least 4 or 5, applied for it. So.
Chief Fitzgerald.
Yeah, Commissioner Chan and board, I just want you to all be aware that when we are contacted by members of the community, we're very diligent about responding back. People may call for a specific individual, and we try to identify who the best person is to get back in touch with the person based off of who's most informed and able to answer the questions that we anticipate. So I can speak on behalf of the chief to let you know that there would be no hesitation among staff to answer any questions that might come our way.
Great, that's a good attitude. We're paid by the taxpayer. We have to continue reminding ourselves of that. Thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Some of the people want to talk to us commissioners. In fact, I would like to have the ability to interview them, at least have them be asked if they would like to be interviewed over the phone prior to coming to the board meeting and being interviewed there. There isn't as much time. You don't have, you really can't ask maybe certain questions that you might want to ask in private. And so I was just floating that idea for discussion.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I really oppose on that because we should be interviewed by the panel, not interviewed by individual commissioner. And that's what happened last time. And I don't want that thing repeat again. It is, in the past, we're always interviewed by the whole panel, not individual. Now it's different if somebody asks a question, we're gonna answer a question, but not interviewing. Thank you.
I'd agree. I know, we've got candidates we haven't met. I would say if they're requesting, our information either directly from Melissa or by simply going to the RFA's website, on the candidate side, if they want to reach out to any commissioner in advance of a formal interview, that's their prerogative. I think it's different that we would get the list and then pick one or pick all and individually contact that person. I think keeping it to getting their materials, all being able to digest that, and then doing a group interview, I think is probably the best, most succinct process that we should go through.
I'm sorry, I want to clarify. Do you say is the candidate prerogative to be interviewed by individual commissioner?
I said it's the candidate, it's up to the candidate. If the candidate reaches out to a commissioner of their own volition, that's on them. I'm saying, I don't think we should be given their contact info and each willy-nilly go reach out and say, hey, I'm on the commission, I want to talk to you, I saw you apply.
Exactly. But
if the candidate reaches out, of course, it's for us to be able to have a conversation.
A conversation, yeah, not interview, because because then you will misrepresenting. Someone said, "Wow, I talked to this commissioner like me, therefore I'm in." So I don't want to be, again, I want to emphasizing it's 7 commissioners represent the board, not 1 commissioner represented the board. Thank you.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yeah, I think you misunderstood or I said it wrong, is that that when someone applies, they be given our numbers if they wish to call us and ask questions. They may just want to learn something. So, and in the process, you know, I would interview them. I would ask questions. So I'm not, that's the greatest idea. I just put it out there. So if somebody calls me, I'll be interviewing them. So.
No, no.
I'd say you're more informally getting a sense of the individual if they happen to call you. But
Yeah.
I think that, yes, the clarification is we're not going to be requesting their phone numbers for
No.
commissioners to do the outreach.
Yeah. But it could be suggested to them that they could call us if they wanted to.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about the word interviewing here. It's not interview.
Right. I think Commissioner Lawrence's point is that he'll ask the questions that he would like to ask of somebody if they happen to call. It's not a part of the formal process. It's not a component that's necessary for their application. I think Commissioner Lawrence is using the term interview as his own kind of personal, not necessarily part of our official process.
Well, another way, run them through the gauntlet, mercilessly ply them with embarrassing questions.
Well, I think Sandra can input to this. Interview is very critical. There's a certain question you can ask, certain question you cannot ask. It's very, I would not ask the candidate any questions. We could be getting to a whole bunch of legality of the thing. So even in the past, when we have questions, we have basically standard question to interview the candidates. And we all agree on that's how we interview. And then we have follow-up question to the candidate. Actually, majority of the time, the question being screened, make sure we don't ask, how old are you, blah, 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 and all that stuff.
So Sandra, could you speak to that? If not part of the formal interview process, if a potential candidate did reach out to Commissioner Lawrence, and in that conversation, they reveal their marital status, their religion, whatever in that course of that conversation, that's not construed as part of the interview process if the other person is doing the outreach, is it?
No, and also not any more than if we're interviewing somebody, we don't have the right to ask some of those kinds of questions that could be skewed as potentially discriminatory. So it's not the questions in and of themselves, but the concern that it creates a perception that someone might appear to be being discriminatory. But a candidate, certainly can provide information as long as that information is not used in a discriminatory way. Then there's nothing wrong with either the candidate sharing it, but it certainly would be advisable to ask.
Commissioner Lawrence?
Yeah, that's some fine points here to consider, because we are technically employees, but then again, we're politicians and we're politicians. It's open season on politicians. You can say anything you're doing as a politician, apparently. And so they're applying to be a politician. They didn't actually run for, so it's interesting. So it's more like Sandra, it would be like interviewing an employee. So if they call me up and I ask them the wrong question, as reference to Commissioner Chan's question, would I be putting me or us, RFA, at risk for asking the wrong question, like you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything is in my world is a degree of risk question, and I think that there's a lesser degree of risk in a conversation that you're having one-on-one like this, where it's sort of a get to know you, want to know a little bit more about you, and you're interested in doing this, then there is a formal interview that we as employees, or certainly HR, is conducting. But I don't think it's without risk. And I think it's just, an awareness. Plus, regardless of the law, we just want to be careful that we're not being perceived as being discriminatory, period. I mean, I just don't think that's obviously to the advantage of the RFA.
So tread lightly, Commissioner Lawrence.
Well, ask Commissioner Daniels there. Yeah, I asked him some seriously tough stuff. I put him to the ringer and he responded very well to all my tough questions. And basically I abused him pretty good and he did well. So he earned my respect there.
Commissioner
Well,
Cham?
Yeah, here's the problem. When you ask question, we did not able to hear what Daniel respond is.
Well, your ears
I-
would have been burning, David.
No,
if you're
let me
like-
let me finish it. That's a problem because that's why we interview by panel, not by individual commissioner. Each one of us are not really. I mean, I have been HR for a long time. All the questions we have to be careful. We have a panel with witnesses. What the question is, what the answer is. All right. So I would not suggest any question to the candidate. Just answer information. If the candidate asks you, well, how many hours you committed? I give them information, my information, but not asking the candidate information. The second thing is that I do not like the word politician, and basically the idea politician is free for all. I have that comment to me by special interest group. Basically, oh, you're a politician. It's free for all. We're a human being here. The pay that we got is not able to, it's not, we're here. I am an elected official, but I'm not a politician. And that's why I speak out candidly how I feel and everything else. And please degrading to say, well, you're a politician, I can say anything bad about you and send any derogative cards and promotions attacking. That is, to me, is not acceptable as an elected official. Commissioners still get the respect of the office, and so are the people, the chief, and also the candidate. We have to respect them as a candidate. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Anything else on this topic? I would just echo, yeah, if a candidate does reach out to you, whether they've applied or not, and asks questions, do your best to answer their questions, concerns, and just keep in the back of your mind that, we do need to tread in those HR realms. It's not an official interview that you're conducting, but more of fact finding probably on the candidate's part. So we look forward to getting those interviews and everything set up. Thanks, Melissa and staff, for all your hard work. All right, moving on to item 9D. Prepare time.
Chair Urban, on
or-
item 9D, we scaled the scope of this presentation back quite a bit. You'll notice that Chief Maxwell isn't in our meeting tonight. Chief Eastman's going to speak, kind of summarize where we're at on this item. And following that, or at some point this evening, I do have validated data from our medical services officers on employee COVID information. If the board are interested, I'm certainly glad to share that this evening.
Okay.
Chair Urban, this is just a quick update of what's been done. If you recall, as part of the budget process, we had a grant from Verdant to fund 2 community resource paramedics. The board deferred action on that as part of the budget process, and then asked the chief to reach out to our contract cities and work on compensation for the community resource paramedic program from our contract cities. Chief has had conversations with each of the contract cities and some dialogue based on the conversations that we had through the budget process. The city of Edmonds and talking to the mayor in discussion with the chief, asked that if you're going to make a dollar ask, please put the dollar in the correspondence with us as you do that. So we had letters drafted to request conversation with the city specific to funding community resource paramedicine, the program. We've stopped that. We've done a calculation on the current 2022 budget of the CRP program. Took 2 years of patient contact and then use that to calculate a proportionate share for each one of the geopolitical boundaries within the RFA and assigned a dollar amount based on the 22-22 budget. The intent is to amend the letters that Chief had drafted for the cities to insert the dollar amount requested. And his intention, and I think his intention was to do it before the end of the week. Unfortunately, he's not feeling well, and we anticipate that those will be delivered next week. And I would assume that there would be an update on how those were received at a meeting in the future.
Do we have an estimate to kind of a base dollar figure where of one of those calculations? Just kind of curious, is it 100 grand? Is it 500 grand?
So if you take our current CRP program and it's 708,000 and change, and for example, the city of Edmonds proportionate share of that would be just over 143,000. The city of Montlake Terrace is 77,000. The city of Briar is just over 12,000, with the remainder of the percentage of population that we've served with the CRP program being in Linwood and unincorporated Snohomish County.
And is that proportionate to the calls or just proportionate to population and cost of the program?
So what we did, Chair Urban, is we took the cost of the program in the 2022 budget, which is 708,000. We took the patients that they have seen in 2019 and 2020, and then took that proportion, and then that's how we calculate the proportion for each of the geopolitical entities. So we didn't do based on population, AV, any of that. We just said, for instance, Edmonds in 19 and 20 had 219 residents served as part of the CRP program. That represents, a said percentage, and then that percentage was calculated based on the 708,000, which equated to 143. The second piece of that calculation is that we know that in today's dollars, if we move forward at some point with the grant from Verdant, we've also calculated in today's dollars, when the grant runs out, what would be the proportionate share to each one of our cities, in anticipation that being a follow-up question that the board's going to want as part of the dialogue with the contract cities is, if we accept the grant from Verdant, do the cities understand what that means, and that their proportionate share would be brought back and they would be expected to pay that upon whatever time in the future Verdant no longer funds it, or we don't get another funding source that's outside of the RFA to do that work. So those numbers have been done doing that same methodology, so Chief can have that full conversation with the leadership of the contract cities and see where that goes.
So currently it's about 40% of the cost is what we're looking at between the three cities, about 40% of that 708. You're still on mute.
I think 66%. I can, if I pull it up, sorry. I'm only working on one screen. I'm used to working on two. Like for instance, in Briar saw 19 residents served by the CRP program. And there's a total of 1,083 in that 2-year mark. 19 of them were Briar, 219 of them were Edmonds, 118 in Montlake Terrace, 217 in Linwood, and just over 500 in the RFA. So I think if you did the math, I'm not sure exactly what the percentage is, but that's how I calculated the percentage, and then literally took that percentage, multiplied it by the current budget, and that was how their share was calculated.
But we wouldn't be seeking anything from Linwood since they're part of the RFA.
That is correct, but we calculated it all, so we knew, right?
Right.
So we have the number of residents in the RFA, the number of residents in Linwood and 3 contract cities, and obviously the unincorporated city of Linwood would be, in this model would be the RFA would be responsible for covering the cost of the program for those residents.
Okay. Commissioner
So there'll
Chan?
be more to come on that, Commissioner.
Okay. Commissioner Chan? You're on mute.
Chief Eastman, that's complicated. That's why we asked you to do all the calculation. Now, but I don't want to add complication, but then we have a discussion too. Some of the people belong to the hospital district, which is they're saying that while they're paying double. How do you answer that questions?
Well, during the time where we had the grant was covering the cost within the hospital district, right? But
Right.
right now, the grant's done, right? And the current
Okay.
program, as we're talking about, solely what's coming out of the general fund of the RFA, which is no longer being paid for by Hospital District 2. And we're talking about the cost share within our contract city partners. When we talk about the potential of accepting the grant from Verdant, as we talked about during the budget, then the grant would fund those two people or those two resource paramedics. And then at some point in time, the grant funding will go away because that's kind of how Verdant's model is. And then that cost burden would be solely on the general fund of the RFA. And so we would ask preemptively, if we continue to expand the program, here is your proportionate share. Are you willing to continue to pay once we go down that path? And Chief will get that answer once we get those letters to the board, and then we can make an informed decision on the grant from Verdant.
But when we receive the grant, are we going to still serving the non-district people, non-hospital district people? So we don't discriminate that.
No, that's all one at that point. And
because Verdant allow us to do it, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Now, I think in our last conversation, we also asked the chief to go and talk to Verdant. Somehow we can extending the grant, give us more, what happened to it. Because one reason I do not agree with the grant is because we have the legacy money. We have to come up with the legacy money afterward. That is, to me, where the save the grant for the firefighter we did not like. So have we approached them for that? So
I don't know exactly how that conversation has gone, but like I said, part of the conversation that we're going to have with the contract cities is that we know if we accept the Verdant grant for the 2 additional CRPs, we know that the grant funding from Verdant's probably not going to continue forever. It might, but we want to know if it continues, then what we do, and the city won't be on the burden for any more, or the city's on the burden for any more dollars. But we want to assure, because one of the conversations we had during the budget process is Verdant starts the program, and then slowly the grant funding erodes away, and then it becomes part of our general fund. And so knowing that that's how it's happened, we want to ensure that everybody knows what the rules are. If that's the case, if we're fortunate enough to enter into additional conversations with Verdant and they continue the grant funding past that date, then we will continue to receive the funding from Verdant to supplement that program or increase it or all those things. In the future, we always have that opportunity. And I know Chief Maxwell really well, and he's always looking at those grant opportunities to inform the program. And I don't see that changing. But to answer your question, Commissioner Chan, I'm not exactly sure. I know we haven't talked to Verdant since Christmas. We have a conversation coming up with them next week. I'm sure that will be a topic of conversation. And then Chief can update you after that conversation at the next time we bring this topic up with the board.
Yeah, I think it's critical to have that conversation. We have to ask. If not, we don't ask, we don't get a yes. So we're gonna have that conversation. Because that is really, the Verdant money is a public money too. So that should be well used as a community service. Thank you.
And Chief Eastman, as far as I understood, the grant program that was being, that Verdant was willing to fund did not have any future requirement. So once the grant ran out, if the grant did run out, there was no requirement that the RFA continue those same community resource paramedics on our own dime.
That's correct.
The way that it was written is, if their funding ended, we could have said, done, we're not keeping those resource paramedics. So there was nothing within the grant that forced us to keep that program continuing beyond their funding level.
No, and the grant didn't step down in percentage of paying for the program either, is my understanding. And in the grant proposal that we brought forward for discussion during the last budget cycle. It was fully funding those 2 extra CRPs for 3 years. No, we don't have to continue those additional resources. That would be at the sole discretion of the RFA.
Correct. Commissioner Kenny?
Chief Eastman, I like how you're thinking on this, and I appreciate you thinking ahead to the next questions that will be coming. That's great. I did just want to confirm, so we will talk about this again sometime in the somewhat near future.
I would assume that would happen, Commissioner Kenny. I know in, with the development of the city of Edmonds wanting a dollar amount put in their letter, we started doing some of the calculations, come up with a methodology of how to cost it. And so I would assume that Chief will give you a brief once those letters are given to the cities and he has a chance to talk to the city managers or the mayors, depending on the city, and see where it goes from there and give you an update on how that conversation is going. Are the cities willing to entertain it? Did they flat tell us no? I'm sure that will come once we deliver that letter, but we felt we owed the board, I would say, a progress report of where we are and what's happened to date with that specific.
Yeah, and that's great. I am hoping we will talk about it again. I do have one request when we talk about it again. I was quickly writing down the data that you were providing, and I don't disagree with anything you described and how you came to that formula. I was just hoping to have the formula in writing so that I can be a little more informed about how you got there. The way you got there sounds fine to me. But I'd just like to have it in writing for our the next time we talk about it.
Yeah, we can make that happen, Commissioner.
Great, thank you.
Any further questions, comments? All right. Thank you. I know it's not the big presentation you had planned, but good information, and we look forward to readdressing this at a future meeting. Moving on to item number 10, new business, our Community Risk Reduction Week resolution for action with Sean Guzman and Chief Fitzgerald.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. I'll pass it directly to Manager Guzman, who has prepared the resolution for your consideration. Certainly, community risk reduction is not only a buzzword, but it's core to what we do on a daily basis. Everybody from our folks who answer the emergency responses to the folks who used to greet people at the front counter that haven't been for a couple of years, but it's core to everything we do. So appreciate the Commission's consideration of the proclamation.
All right, thank you. I think Mike V has a graphic that he's going to put up on the screen. And then in your packet, page 122 to 125, you'll find the proclamation, which I simplified to one page. And actually, Mike, we're going to go to the CRR graphic since the CRP talk is going to be put on hold. I think that was another one I sent to you earlier in the week. Sorry about that.
I'll go find it while you're speaking.
Okay. So community risk reduction is a grassroots effort that is really designed to educate our internal stakeholders. So it's not necessarily educating the community about community risk reduction. It's about educating our staff, like Chief Fitzgerald said, starting at the chief, working on down to every single person in our agency being part of community risk reduction. The overall goal is that in everything that we do every day, in every part of our job, we keep risk in mind. And that means that we try to make a change with every opportunity. So for our fire crews, when they go out on a medical call, if they see a smoke alarm that's outdated, they take that few extra minutes and change it right at that moment. If they see a trip hazard in a business or a door blocked in a business when they're going to pick up dinner, every moment is a teachable moment. And all of those small acts combined together can lead to a healthier and safer community, not only for the residents we serve, but also for the health and safety of our firefighters. And we've heard Chief Hovis say it many times over that our main goal every day is that all of our firefighters go home safe. So that's what community risk reduction is all about. It's not about public education. It's not about inspections. Those are just parts of it. It's about what we do every single day and all the interactions. It's not just about fire. It's about medical. It's about disaster preparedness. It's about all the preventative things that we talk about here when I come speak about all the things that we're doing to keep our community safe. Mike, if you want me to, I can screen share. I have it very quick here.
I'm sure you might have it done before I do. I apologize.
That's okay. So I just want to show you really quick here. Let me share screen. So this is just our community risk reduction graphic I wanted to show you guys really quick. Again, we're constantly looking at new and emerging hazards in our community. There's new hazards every day. COVID is a new hazard that we didn't anticipate or could not have anticipated. We also are looking at our changing community demographics with all of the new building that is going in, low income communities that are popping up to serve our underserved residents. We also know that our residents remain underserved, even with all the services that are provided in our community. We still have a lot of people that are out there alone, and that's part of what our CRP program aims to do, is to connect those people with services so that they're not alone, that they're in a safe living environment. Again, like I talked about, improving firefighter safety and occupational health. Also, CRR helps manage our increasing call volumes. And, that's one of our goals, is to keep call volumes down by preventing the call from happening in the first place. Also, CRR is about improving community relations. And we've done a really good job with partnerships and relationships in our community, especially over the last 2 years with COVID. And finally, you'll probably be happy to hear this. CRR is about being budget friendly. So CRR actually helps keep budgets low because we're reducing firefighter injuries. We're less wear and tear on our apparatus. And so it is very budget friendly. And I know that always makes everybody happy. So that's my little background on CRR. I hope you will sign the resolution. We're going to be implementing quarterly education with all of our crews through rescue hubs so that they can start to learn about CRR and what their role in CRR is. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? So is this a local effort or is this a national effort as far as this being the week?
So this is a national effort, and this is really just the kickoff to the year. And so agencies all across the nation are implementing CRR in one way or another. There's no set way to do it because every agency, every community is a little bit different.
Great, thank you. If there's no Commissioner Daniels.
You said this was a kickoff for the year. So what other items for the calendar year are you thinking about?
Oh, we have quite a few, actually. I haven't been able to come before the board yet and kind of share what our annual plan is. We have a little bit of a mixture depending on the COVID forecast. So a lot of our outreach is done virtually, but also when it comes to our crews, they're out there in the community every day, real live and in person. Whether it's changing a smoke alarm in an individual's home or doing a smoke alarm wide event in an entire mobile home park. Hopefully we'll get back to events. So that will be a large amount of outreach that we do. And then also working in our schools and bringing together other community partners. So we have a pretty robust community outreach and prevention plan, which I hope to bring to you guys very soon.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or anybody wishing to make a motion? Commissioner Kenny?
I move the adoption of the resolution 01112022-02 resolution proclaiming January 17 through 23, 2022 be designated as Community Risk Reduction Week.
A second.
Thank you. Second from Commissioner Daniels. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, board.
Moving on to committee updates. Anybody wishing? Commissioner Chan, that's no item one. Mute.
The Finance Committee meeting last week, we couple of things we talked about. One is on the budget. Originally, the budget was going to hire Moss Adams come and do the review of the internal system and also assess the software or help the software part of it. Now they said just want to do the internal control, not the software itself. And also that I'm concerned that because in the past, what they did is that get there to look at the internal control, but that's many years ago, this is okay, then they don't need to change the software. So that's one of my concerns, especially if I leave there, there's no kind of finance person pushing that issues. And that's one of my concerns. Second things that we talk about right now, I asked the questions about when we hand over. Actually, yes, April is the day that they actually voting because we belong to what they call large fire caucuses, which have 3 cities, which is Everett, 3 organizers, Everett, us, and also Server, the District 7. So literally they can gang up together, and I was jokingly, but they said 2 of them can say, no, they're gonna, the third one, right now, each one get 1 seat. They can gang up and say, yeah, Commissioner Chan's gone, so let's put another one from Server and Everett, which they won't do, but legally they can do it. So the handover, it is on April. So there's a talk, they may want to move it up to February because a lot of organizations have new election officials and new staff. So I'll keep you updated on, I think on this coming Thursday board meeting, they have a discussion that I'll update the board on what the situation is. So any other questions, give me a call. Yeah.
Thank you, David. Committee updates, intergovernmental met briefly, just a really quick one the other week with the chief and Chief Eastman. And it was related to our contract cities, Mountlake Terrace and Briar. And it's that time where we have to officially serve the 2-year letter as those contracts are expiring. So the dates were clarified, and those kind of 2-year threshold of end of contract letters going to the cities, which they're fully prepared and waiting. And it still looks like the intent of Mountlake Terrace and Briar to come to the voters in 2022 on the RFA question. I'm just kind of waiting to see if and when those cities both decide to do that. So that's the only intergovernmental. I miss anything, Commissioner Teoflack? Yeah. Any other updates, capital facilities?
Yeah, actually, I have a question on the
Yes.
intergovernment committee. Do you guys, in the past, all the committee, we keep minutes. Do you have keep minutes in your meeting?
No, not official minutes from the committees. Melissa, we're not taking any official minutes. Any of the
I
committees?
take notes, but I have not been preparing any official minutes. But I do have minutes. I do have notes that I've taken at all the meetings.
Yeah, it would be great if you can share the notes so that the board can know about it. And also that I think one thing that really we need to focus, I know Chief Eastman have been, we're working with about the levy rate. I think we should really able to calculate also levy rate. Actually, Eastman, Chief Eastman, you still there?
He's off camera. I'm not sure if he's still on.
Okay.
You might have had another call.
Yeah, we all discussed, he and I get the back of the envelope thing. I think we should have some kind of a, telegraphing to the coming city that if they join, our rate will be lower. Of course, everybody join, Edmund join, it will be much lower. So that is that we need to continue to do the calculation. That's the most attractive part in the city, in the government committee, the communication then, what the rate would be. And also, of course, emphasizing all the benefit. I think we're listing. I think we should come up with some kind of a one-page thing that we've been consistent, talk to the contract city being I think I share with everybody in my proposal is that basically telling them the message is that they become a homeowner versus renter, that scenario. There's a lot of critical message that we need to continue a consistent message to them. So I think that is critical. So I express interest in it. I think it's very critical now, especially Mill Creek coming in. We got to do a good job. And then Monte Terrace, Dwyer, and then Edmonds. I think those people, city will be seeing what's happening on those cities. If we did not do a good job, it's going to have domino effect and affecting one. Another things on that is that we should get the Linwood people. I talked to Linwood people who involved in the RFA. I think they can bear witness to saying that yes, they're glad they joined the RFA. I think that will help send out the messaging as a reference. So I would like to, I'm not in the committee, but I definitely like to be on the committee. If not, I would like to make some suggestions that we have done because I was involved in the RFA. I think I know what the city is looking for. I think that's critical. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kennedy, did you have any capital facilities updates?
No.
Okay, great. All right, moving on to commissioner comments. I just want to repoint out, we sent out last week the kind of just big random list of board priorities, had our 2020 and 2021 ones in there for reference. If you have not had a chance to send any suggestions of additions to that list, please try to do so by tomorrow. I'd like for us to be able to get that list compiled and then sent back out by the end of the week and give us the time between this meeting and our 1st of February to get those compiled and then back out to everybody for kind of voting on your top priorities and come back with the results of that list. So please do keep an eye out. Hopefully by Thursday, we can get that list back out. So if there's any that you want to add, please do send those to Melissa. Any commissioner comments? Commissioner Chan?
Yes, I'm really excited. Our new CFO will come on next meeting and sign February 1st. I think that is a great thing. I think there's still a little confusion. People are asking why the commissioner get involved in the choosing the CFO. One thing those people who old enough can remember Enron in October 2001. The whole company failed because the CFO was making up numbers, no integrity, and that's the collapse. The whole huge is a 9.3 billion revenue. On top of that, it also collapsed. Arthur Andersen is one of the big 5 accounting firms. They basically collapsed, and all gone out, wipe out, and that kind of getting the SEC have a more Sarbanes-Oxley, that changing the whole thing. And I think Commissioner Gilfleck probably know that. I know before you were in work for Fidelity is that the CFO talk in the Wall Street, it affected stock price, affected everything because the CFO we're giving the information. So that's the reason it really involved the whole company and the whole organization. And I look back on the record, is actually Commissioner Kenny is the one who suggests, make a motion to form a committee. Well, we decided we want to upscale. This is a new position. I think it's also supported by Matter, Lawrence, and me. And I agree, Commissioner Matter did ask some tough questions when we have interviewed Chris Bartwell. Asked him, is he going to be toe-to-toe with the chief if something, questionable he wanted, and he answered very good, in a way. So, and I appreciate also the chief. Originally, he was going to just hire another, finance and director of finance, and also just go through the regular, I think get Sandra to put up the MSRC, the website. He embraced the whole idea, and he, take a professional recruiting to find a perfect candidates. I think we will be. I'm looking forward for him to come in, and I'm looking forward for him to really make changes, because he will be a strategic CFO. So he will able to present a budget that is next 4 or 5 years will not be negative. At least if it's negative, he will come up with some kind of solution to that. So I'm really excited, and I hope the rest of the board will be excited to welcome him.
Great. Any other commissioner comments? I'll throw one more out there. So Melissa did some initial outreach with American Leadership on the board retreat, and got it back dates at the end of March and kind of early mid end of April. So I'll send that out. I know they threw some dates that were Thursday, Friday, or Saturday dates. Just kind of curious on thoughts of a full day retreat, single full day, or a 2-day. I'm assuming we'll keep it local, given all of the COVID, hotel, everything else. We'll keep it local and manageable. But is there any initial thoughts on a 1 day, 1.5 day, just a straight single long day? Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, I think the most effective one we have is on Samiyamu with 2 days. So it's not just the meeting itself. After the meeting, we'll individual building, commissioner building personal relationship and bonding, that type of thing.
So potentially a Friday evening and an all Saturday?
Yes.
And get kind of some of the more personal stuff in the kind of that Friday session, and then more of the dig in deep stuff on the Saturday.
Well, yes. And I think one thing I really give credit, I'm never a believer in All American. At that situation, there was 2 commissioners did not really want to go there. It was a waste of time. But finally, these 2 commissioners go, and we all went crying, because we related all personal relationship actually with the labor in there too. That really break down the barrier, and we see each other as personal, as a human, rather than what the position we take. And we're pretty frank about what we don't like, because we cannot solve the issue. We do not be candid with each other. So I suggested 2 days and 1 night.
Okay. Commissioner Daniels?
I would agree. A Friday, Saturday would be good.
Okay. I'll send some dates, and please respond to Melissa with your availability on those dates, and hopefully we can all meet the same one and get that confirmed with All American. Commissioner Lawrence?
Yeah, is that like overnight, or you just drive someplace Friday night,
Overnight.
drive back overnight? So
Overnight.
do we share a room, or?
No.
6 feet of distance, Commissioner Lawrence.
Oh,
No.
Well, we'll get some of those details done and emailed out, so keep an eye out for that. If there's no further commissioner comments, we can go ahead and take our 10-minute break, and then we'll close out of this meeting and return into executive session for collective bargaining pursuant to RCW 4230-144. We'll call that initial session for 20 minutes with no plan for action following the executive session. So it is currently 8:24. So please try to join back on the executive session at 8:35. And Melissa, if you can let our attorney know. Perfect. See you at 8:35 in the executive session.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Commissioners.
staff.
Good evening.
The executive session has been extended for 10 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 15 minutes. The executive session has been extended for 5 minutes. The regular meeting was called back to order at 9:25 p.m. and without objection, the regular meeting has been adjourned at 9:25 p.m. Have a great night.